Hello, everyone. Geoffrey Nance here again. Word Wednesday. So, we are going to be talking about what I think might be one of the most misquoted verses in the entire Bible. So, 66 books, 1,000 plus pages. What's the most misquoted verse in the entire thing? I think it's this one right here. Money is the root of all evil. If you ask people, you just did a survey, just kind of went around your church, said, "Hey, can you quote that verse for me about money?" That's the one they probably quote, and then they would say, "Money is the root of all evil." Um, the unfortunate part about that is I think that sets a very dangerous precedent for how we as believers view money. If you really do believe that money is the root of all evil, that is problematic because it essentially paints the picture that money is a bad thing. Like you shouldn't have it, you shouldn't want it, you certainly shouldn't want more of it. It sets that up. So in this sense that you now have people that think, well, Christians ought to all be poor. That's the way it ought to be because after all, money's bad, right? That's what the passage says. It says money's bad. It's the root of all evil. Well, guys, the reason that's so dangerous is that's not what the verse says. It's not what the verse says at all. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to show you in context where this passage falls in First Timothy. I think you're going to be surprised here to really note the surrounding verses. And anytime that you are doing a Bible study, when you're looking specifically at a passage, you ought to look at it in context. Certainly the original hearers would have read the whole thing in context. So they wouldn't, pick it up here and just be like, hey, here's a little piece. Let me go find something here and read it. They would have received the whole letter, read through the whole letter, and certainly would have had it in context. But we don't always do that. So I think that is important. So let me first just read the verse as it is so that we get a better understanding of what it's saying. And then we'll take a broader picture of the verse and see where it is in the context of First Timothy. All right. So here's what the verse actually says. First Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Now, that's where most people stop, right? So for the love of money, not money, the love of money is not the root, it's a root. You see, even changing that one little word right there makes a big difference. Money is a root or the root. No, it says it's a root, but it says it's the love. So it doesn't say it's the money, it says it's the love of money. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And then most people stop there, but let's not. Let's keep going. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So, do you think then that Timothy is really trying to make a different point than what most of us think we're reading about in this passage? Okay, so a couple of things here. He says the love of money is a root. So when you love something, you pursue that thing. You think often about that thing and you have a desire for that thing. And oftentimes the desire for that thing will then take precedent over pretty much really anything else you have going on. Think back, those of you guys who are married, to the time when you first saw that person who would become your spouse. Did you think about them? Did you look for opportunities to be around them? How much of your time did you spend thinking about ways to be with them? opportunities that you would be able to spend with them, things that you would do with them, how much of that time, effort, and energy did that person consume in your life? Because when you love something, you have a desire for that thing, and oftentimes the desire for that thing becomes your, in some ways, reason for pursuing that thing. It can take on such a role in your life that it becomes the thing that you are pursuing, the thing that you are investing most heavily in with your time, with your thoughts, with your efforts, and your energy. Well, that's a dangerous thing if that thing that we're pursuing then is money, because now that's what we're constantly thinking about. There are plenty of passages that talk about this. What's the first one that comes to mind for me? Is, do not worry about what you will eat or drink, the clothes that you wear. Look at the lilies of the field and how God takes care of them. So if we're constantly out there thinking about money, I would say that money then as a tool has an unhealthy place in our life, because it's taking up time where we ought to be substituting other things, most likely our relationship with God, things about Him, things that He's doing in our life. But if you're thinking about money a lot, I would suspect that at some point it's because you are worried about money. Okay. About how you're going to pay for bills, about how you're going to take care of things. And look, those things are good. Those are things you have to do. But it shouldn't be something that we're constantly thinking about, or something that takes on such a priority in our mind that it would come before other things like Jesus, which should be ultimately much more important. Now, if we love Jesus, there's another passage that says that you can't love both God and money. All right. So again, here's that word love. You can't love both God and money. Do you love money? Or is money a tool? You say, man, there's some good things I can do with money, and I recognize it for what it is. I need it to do certain things. I need it to be able to help people. I need it to provide for my family. Is it a tool, or is it something that you love, you think about, that consumes your thoughts, you can't really get away from it? That's when it becomes unhealthy. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And then your pursuit of money. How do you pursue this thing? So if it can be a root of all kinds of evil, then how do we pursue it? How does the love of money become something that is a negative in our life? So we know that that gold is in the Garden of Eden, and that God created it, and He said that it was good. So how does something that God created that is good become something that is bad? When it takes on something that it's never supposed to be. When it has such a priority in our life that's well above where it's supposed to be. When it gets into the place where God and trusting God and His provision is supposed to be. I told you I would read this in context. So in my Bible here, this little, you know how they list off these little paragraph sections, and they kind of call it by, little subheadings, so you know what it's about. Look at what this one is titled, Love of Money. This whole section is called the love of money. So now I'm going to read the whole passage to you. See if you don't think it takes on a different flavor. Starts out in verse 3. So 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 3. If anyone teaches false doctrines and does not agree to the sound instruction of our Lord Jesus Christ and to godly teaching, he is conceited and understands nothing. He has an unhealthy interest in controversies and quarrels about words that result in envy, strife, malicious talk, evil suspicions, and constant friction between men of corrupt mind, who have been robbed of the truth and who think that godliness is a means to financial gain. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. All right, so now that you've read that verse in the context, does it not take on a different flavor? Paul is writing here to Timothy saying, I don't want you or anyone in the congregation, anyone in the church, to put money in a place where it does not belong, so that you end up pursuing money more than you pursue God, and your pursuit of money causes you to wander from God, to wander from the faith, to get away from those things. Where the Bible clearly says, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy and thieves don't break in and steal. Guys, next week I'm gonna talk about this idea, is God opposed to wealth? And there's no way, right? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about heaven. I'll just go ahead and kind of throw that out there. We're going to talk about heaven. There's no way, absolutely zero chance that you can read any passage that talks about heaven and not think that God is good with wealth. It's impossible. It's going to be impossible. I'm going to talk to you about the walls of heaven, and you're going to be blown away. I mean, anyway, I don't want to run next week, but heaven is an incredible place, right? And you talk about a wealthy place, it is there. So now let's go back to the passage at hand, since I've kind of whet your appetite for what we're going to talk about next week. Absolutely, God is okay with wealth, all right? And there are great things that we can do with wealth, but we can't love wealth or put wealth in the place where God alone is supposed to be. Let's read a little bit further here, because I think this is important too, to read a little bit further down this. He says in verse 17, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up for themselves a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. If Paul's intent was to say, I think all Christians should be poor, because being poor means you're close to God, why would he have just 7 verses later specifically called out to those who were wealthy already, saying, guys, here's what I want you to do with the way that God has already blessed you? God is not opposed to us being wealthy. He wants us to take the right view of wealth. It doesn't need to be something that you love. It doesn't need to be something that consumes your thoughts. It needs to be a tool which you understand I can use to indeed do exactly what Paul is laying out here in 1 Timothy 6:18. That I would be rich in good deeds, that I would be generous, I would be willing to share, and in so doing, that I would lay up for myself treasures in heaven. So, guys, listen. We need to understand that we as believers can be wealthy. There are people in the Bible that were extremely wealthy. Abraham was extremely wealthy. It was well known that he was wealthy. Job was extremely wealthy. There are people in the New Testament, just in case you think that's an Old Testament thing, that were extremely wealthy. You got Zacchaeus, you got other examples. Here we see people that are unnamed, but they're part of this church Timothy is pastoring, and Paul is calling out to those guys saying, listen, if you're rich, you don't need to go sell off everything you got and get poor to serve God, but you do need to let money be in its place. You don't need to love money. You need to see it as a tool that can be used to be a blessing to others. You need to see it as such. And then, guys, look, don't miss this part here. It says, don't put your hope in money, but put your hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. So it's not bad to have money and then to enjoy what you can do with it, particularly if you are using that to do good for your family, for your church, for missionaries, for mission work, for the blessing of other people, going around doing random acts of kindness, particularly if you tell them why you're doing it, not just simply doing it, but saying, hey, because Jesus was so generous with me, I wanted to be generous with you. I suppose that would make a difference in somebody's life. What if God used that little thing to kind of be the next little catalyst that he's using in their life to draw them closer to him, just to let them see an example of somebody who is living out the Christian life in a meaningful way? Guys, money is a tool, okay? And it can be used in unhealthy ways. If we love money and we put it in a place where God never wanted it to be, and it causes us to put our faith in it, thinking, man, money is going to save me. Money is going to be what's going to rescue me. Money is going to be what's going to provide for me. Instead of saying, no, 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 that's God. That's God. And no matter how much money you have, you say, look, man, I still need God to provide for me. I need God to provide for me. But when God provides for me and God blesses me, I want to be a blessing to other people. And when we see money in that way, we can say, well, look, maybe it is good that I could pursue wealth and then have more of it and be successful. I mean, don't you guys think that it would be fantastic if believers in every area of business were terrific at the top of their game, well, whatever that is? Like we had the best Christian doctors, we had the best Christian preachers, we had the best Christian teachers, we had the best Christian on and on and on and on, every area of life. Wouldn't that be great? Right? And if God blesses those people and what they're doing and they're able to create products that help a lot of people, that'd be fantastic. I mean, we all like it. There's certain restaurants that we all know that we go to and we're like, yeah, I like that restaurant. Especially those ones where we know that, there's Christian believers that founded those things and they still have those Christian principles. We love supporting those things and they've gotten wealthy, and that's a good thing, right? So let's keep supporting them. But let's also realize that maybe God is opening up some doors in your personal life too, that he is allowing you to walk through, if you will. But he's going to test your heart. See? Because everybody looks at that rich young ruler and they say, oh man, Jesus said, if you don't go sell everything, then you can't come follow me. But he didn't say it to everybody. We take that one passage, we act like it applies to everybody. It doesn't. It's to that one person. Because God knew that one person's heart. And he knew that for that one person, that money would cause him to wander from the faith. He was too concerned about money. He was seeing money as his God instead of God as the provider of his money. That's the key difference there, guys. That's the key difference. God is the key provider of our money. Money is not our God. And when we understand the difference there, and we can pray that God blesses us so that we might be a blessing to other people and do exactly what 1 Timothy says here. Be rich in good deeds. Okay, if God has blessed you, use your money well. Remember the parable of the talents, that they didn't just put that money in a savings account. Jesus actually looked at them and said to the one person who buried it in the ground, why didn't you put it in a savings account? At least then I would have got some interest. That parable, Jesus telling us you can take some risk. You need to be wise in what you're doing, but there's a risk return principle, and that risk return principle says that those who take little risk are likely to have very little reward. Those who are willing to take more risk are likely to have bigger rewards. So that's been a principle that's throughout the Bible. It's the risk return principle. So some of you guys are sitting out there and you're kind of waiting on something. There's some opportunities out there. Maybe God wants you to take advantage of it. You need to be wise in what you're doing with it. But maybe it's time to take that risk. Maybe it's time to take that next step and then commit to seeing what God has in store for you. Not because money is your God, but because God is the provider of money. And perhaps He's opened up a door for you to be a bigger blessing to other people by having some more of that. All right, guys, that is our word for Wednesday. Hope that you have enjoyed that. Look forward to sharing a little bit more with you next week. And if you want to pass this along to other people, feel free to do so. Would love to see even more and more people on here each week, and this be a blessing to each and every one of you. Thanks again. Bye-bye.